Hey guys, it's Matt. Probably need another 2 days on the Philip K. Dick breakdown, his full 40-minute interview about the alternate realities, parallel worlds, and all that interesting stuff. So I came across this somewhat recently. I think it's interesting. It supports those that research what we call the impossible architecture that shouldn't have been able to be built in the past. Not what you're looking at now, of course. This looks like a set out of a movie that becomes worse and worse every time I see it. It was on last night called Tombstone. I think they've run it over 20,000 times on cable. Kurt Russell, Tombstone. Try to tie that. How about Billy Bob Thornton? A fat Billy Bob Thornton in that bar, just roughing everybody up. That movie struggles with being really good and really terrible at the same time. Anyway, this is Bismarck, North Dakota. This, what we're going to look at today, supports those that are researchers or hardcore researchers of the impossible architecture, inherited buildings, things like that. But it's nothing groundbreaking here, nothing that's going to blow your mind. Just some interesting stuff. I don't know if anybody's looked at Bismarck, North Dakota. Relates to the YouTube video I came across. So, as the dots started to be connected, the reality, as usual, started to break down. What else is new? Not in a mind-blowing way like the Cologne Cathedral, but it's what it does, right? It's like it's Geico. So let's look at this video called Vintage Photos of Bismarck, North Dakota from the late 1800s. Okay. And you'll see where I'm going with this, guys. The landing of Villard and Rufus Hatch Party, Bismarck, Dakota Territory, September 5th, 1883. Now, North Dakota became a state 1889. Let's just call it 1890 so we remember. 10 years off the new century, Dakota became a state. So not even a state yet. And we have the landing of, I don't know, is this 40 Acres and a Mule? You know, it's like the first, or the ending scene in Far and Away with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. They promised everybody some land. Who knows? But you got to be offered something at that time in history to go out to Bismarck, North Dakota. Negative 25 degrees below zero can kind of happen for several weeks. This is a place only for the hardcore. So you have to understand, who they hopefully they offered him more than 40 acres and a mule to go out to that place. East on Main Street, Bismarck, Dakota Territory, taken by Frank J. Haynes. This is the photograph that looks like what we would expect, right? A set or a scene out of Deadwood did a good job recreating this. The Deadwood movie remake's not bad either. 10 years later, the reunion remake, like the American Pie remake. Tombstone, it's what it looks like, right? Where's Doc Holliday? You'd expect him to come walking out of a place like this. It's exactly what we would think, right? 4th Street, Bismarck, Dakota Territory, blah, blah, blah. Here's another one. That's what we would expect, right? Bismarck, North Dakota. There's nothing out there, man. No roads. Just it's for the hardest of hardcore. They didn't make it too well in New York, and just they go 40 acres and a mule, and they'll endure negative 25 degrees for 3 or 4 weeks in the winter. Big sign, they got Milwaukee beer. Wow, Milwaukee's best is served in there, which at Penn State we used to call the Beast. You could get it for $3 a pitcher. Anyway, so. Part of Main Street during celebration, blah, blah, blah. There's not much here. Okay. Then we get this. Bird's eye view of Bismarck. Okay, bird's eye view. Taken by Lorenzo Dal Junkins. Okay, bird's eye view. Because he's up on a hill. He's wearing, looks like the skull of a buffalo. That's interesting. What else is here? This is where we're going. View of a building in Bismarck taken by photographer Lorenzo Dal Judkins. View of a building. That's all. What is it? So after all that shit we just saw, those pieces of shit, wooden buildings, that's what you would expect. Okay. Bam. What's this? Like, where'd this come from? Considering what we just saw. The spire, and I'm not an inherited buildings person. We'll talk about that later. The community that researches this stuff, I've asked them to explain if the buildings were there. I've asked them to explain how did they cover that up with tens of thousands of people, and that has not been addressed yet by by the community that does this research. If the buildings are inherited, how was it covered up? by this system? Was it covered up in one gigantic spell, or some dark spell? Somebody went out in a rainstorm and everybody's memory was erased? Or did Men in Black come in and take people's diaries? I'd love to know the theories on that. That has not been addressed by the community yet. And that's my biggest question. But nevertheless, it's all still a big reality breakdown. It's all fun to look at. So you go, bam, what is this thing? It just says a building. And the spire, for those that, that are proponents that likely the free energy existed, what is this spire here that's 25 feet above the top of the building? This is a woman here, I believe. And she's not next to the building. The building is 30, 40 feet away. I doubt this building still stands. It's massive. These windows are 12, 15 feet tall. The spire goes up 20 feet, maybe even. It looks like a wind vane, directional. Okay, but do you need to... My house is a little wind vane on the top. It's a little metal pig. It goes up 2 feet. Well, you got to go up 25 feet. The wind different up there? I don't know. I don't know. And what is this line or wire coming across here? Whatever. It's all interesting. Now, is there any other pictures here? Okay, so remember what this said. Photographer Lorenzo Dal Judkins. So somebody saying, Matt, there's no guarantee that maybe this was taken, it's not the landing of Rufus or whatever. This could have been 20, 30 years later. Well, here's the thing. And this is one of the reasons I decided to make this video. Photographer Lorenzo Dal Judkins. Okay. Now, we find the New York Public Library, a little entry on Lorenzo Dal Judkins. He died in 1890. Okay, he died in 1890. So that proves that this is accurate. This is all around the time of when it says here, 1883. This Lorenzo Dal Judkins took these pictures as well as this. So, because he died in 1890. So that's what you would expect. I didn't know that was even in there. That's what you would expect from the people that just landed in the Bismarck territory, expecting to survive negative 25 degrees for up to 6 weeks. You wouldn't really expect this. And again, because it is pretty confirmed, if you search Lorenzo Dal Judkins, you see this picture actually pop up. You can find it in other places. So we know it's prior to his death, 1890, and why wouldn't it be, along the same lines of these other photos he took? So again, very odd, very odd. Now, in terms of researching Bismarck, North Dakota, the other building that stands out is something called the Winchester House. Let's just do it this way. Some stuff I pulled into email. Excuse my dreadfully slow Mac. It's Winchester House. So there's two entries here where it's so old that it had to be drawn. This is a drawing, not a picture. Horse and buggy going by. This Winchester House of Pembina, North Dakota. This is an article about the Winchester House, late 1800s, taken from a Minnesota newspaper, basically saying, hey, anybody going out to North Dakota, anybody that would dare go out there and risk your life, you might want to stay at this Winchester House. This is late 18. At the bottom is cut off. It says it was built in 1882. That's what it says here about the Winchester House in Pembina. But this article is from the 1800s, a Minnesota newspaper. And then you get into historical records that show, what we've seen many times, the researchers that do this sort of thing. The building just kind of stands by itself, like all those weird pictures of all the state capitals being built, nothing around it, and no roads, and it just looks completely out of place. Now, this building is not the Cologne Cathedral. Is it possible it was done at the... Sure, it's not. This is not mind-blowing stuff here in this video, guys. It's just one more bit of evidence that kind of supports what these researchers do. Here's the building we looked at in the video that I was referencing, vintage photos of Bismarck, North Dakota from the late 1800s. The information on Lorenzo what's his name? Lorenzo Dow Judkins died in 1890. Okay, I don't think he took this picture. We're just attributing him to this. All right, this is called, again, Winchester House. For those wondering, it has nothing to do with Winchester Rifle Company. I think that's a Northeast company that has nothing to do with this. So you can go to statemuseum.nd.gov, and then there's a huge URL after that. I probably will leave it in the link if anybody's interested, but there's not a whole lot here. And if you look at Winchester House, there's some other photos like this in the snow, and but this one I found interesting. It's called View of Pembina from Winchester House Cupola. So from the cupola, you can go, this thing is a big, tall building. You go up in the cupola, and then you look over Pembina. So this beautiful, big-ass building, we've seen, how many times have we seen this through those that do this sort of research? This big-ass building, beautiful building, it just looks over, just nothing out there. It's just a piece of shit town. This guy down here is trying to make it with his sister. This guy down here, he's married his dog. I mean, this guy's trying to grow carrots in the backyard. There ain't nothing here, man. Wyatt Earp would come in Tombstone and be like, let's get the hell out of here. There's nothing here. It says right even here, view from Winchester House, cupola, for Pembina. It's a piece of shit. So this kind of proves, let's see what this is. This is another view of Pembina from Winchester House, cupola, looking the other way. Some kind of big back here. This building's actually quite impressive, but it's look, there's nothing out here, guys. This is North Dakota territory. It's like, they put Mel Gibson in Return to Thunderdome or whatever. They put him backwards on that donkey and they sent him out in the desert. If somebody sent you out there, this is the United States. They just sent you walking, you'd be dead. There's nothing you'd come across. There's nothing out here, North Dakota territory. Come across, some certain types of, I can't even say it. They'll call it primate speech, primate beach. So here's another picture of Winchester House. We don't know what the building was called. That's interesting. We don't know what this building was called. Doesn't say. And if you look it up with other records, it just says photo of a public building, Bismarck. And again, it doesn't look like free energy. It looks like a weather vane, but it's just odd. Of course, why do you need to put this? You know how hard it would even be to construct a 20, 30-foot pole in 1890 or whenever? Are you kidding? I mean, why do you need the windows to be 20 feet tall or 15 feet? It just, again, this isn't blowing anybody away, but I think most of you guys would agree. It does support what these researchers do in terms of buildings that should not have been able to be constructed before electricity, before the portable diesel engine, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of asked these guys some questions about, please come out with certain theories, 2 months ago, and several people responded to me. But again, nobody answered the main question, which, let me just reiterate that again. And again, I don't want anybody to come back to me with a video. Just at some point, I'm just curious what you guys would say about if this building was inherited, and a lot of the researchers would say that. Of course, we've all heard that. It's possible. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying I'm not going to lead with that as a leading theory until there's a little bit more evidence of that. But I guess my theory on what's happening is even more bizarre, so I shouldn't talk. That a reality that's not very real, some sort of a matrix, can kind of do whatever it wants. My answer, or my theory, is almost the easy way out. So I shouldn't get on these guys too much. But I would like, if you're going to analyze this, inside the bookends of known reality that I stray out of now as much as possible, and these buildings were inherited, well, how is it covered up? How is it covered up? How were hundreds of thousands of people kept quiet where they weren't even allowed to write in a diary that was passed down through the family? My family tree book has entries that go back to the late 1600s, and that's me. Just, something, my a family member has down the road and go pull a family tree book that was recompiled in early, I think 1901 or 1902, but some of the entries on who married who goes back to 16 something. So if these buildings are inherited, how is it covered up? That's my big question, whether it be these buildings or Philadelphia City Hall. And, just to reiterate, to be crystal clear, okay, these guys, the landing, what does it say? The landing party, the landing of Villard and Rufus Hatch party, Bismarcky, Dakota territory. Bismarcky, you say he's just a friend. September 5th, 1883. All right, here they come. Offered 40 acres and a mule. And, who knows? They probably lied about gold, just they got all these poor saps to come to these wretched places. Pretty tough and wretched place. Sorry if you're from there, but you have electricity and heat. Kind of a little bit of easier to get through the winter with electricity and heat than these guys. And how do you heat this building? Well, how do you heat that building? That's actually really easy to heat. Franklin stove with a hole in it could do that. But how do you heat with if it's negative 25 degrees? They could hit negative 30 degrees there, Fahrenheit. Absolutely, it's happened there. How do you heat that thing? I don't know. But the point is, guys, landing party, here they come. So these guys here, this is the JFK car? There's 3 rows, 6 in the car. This is the reality recreating the JFK, the Dealey Plaza. These guys are going to go a few blocks down the road and be like, if it's inherited buildings, like, what's this thing? Who built this? We thought we're the landing party. We thought we're the first poor bastards out here. Who built this gigantic thing? So this guy right here, he then wrote that in his diary. And then his diary still, like somebody in Bismarck, North Dakota still has his diary. And he's like, what's this guy's name again? Uncle Rufus Hatch, Villard. Nobody names their kid Villard anymore. Willard Scott, but not Villard. So Uncle Rufus, I'm reading his diary. He says, we landed in Bismarck, North Dakota. And there was this giant building. It says it right here. Oh, Uncle Rufus, he had syphilis. He's crazy. Or this guy here. He maybe made a sketch of it and he kept it at home, kept it in the couch. What happened to all that evidence if these buildings are inherited, whether it be San Francisco or anywhere else? See, because to me, you can't explain all that away. This guy would have made a pencil sketch. This person would have put it in his family tree book. This person would have gotten drunk and forgot about it. But at some point, there'd be tens of thousands of, not library. Somebody said, well, Matt, they can cover up the Library of Congress. Everything, your real history's been removed. I agree my real history's been removed. But again, I have history in my family tree book that's never gone outside the family. It's not vetted by the Library of Congress. I didn't submit it. My family didn't submit it. It's our personal shit. So nobody has any personal stuff that attributes to these buildings being inherited. That's what I'd love. How is that covered up? Why doesn't that evidence exist? If one of these researchers comes out and says, Matt, Mandela effect, I'll be like, hey, I'll give you that. I see the Mandela effect. My reality can change I'll give you that. But these guys they need to address that. If somebody says relative of Rockefeller got up on top of the Mount Rushmore in a rainstorm, cast a spell to remove, to some dark magic to remove all the evidence that these buildings were here, I'll say thank you. At least that's at least a theory. Hey, that is, in this reality breakdown, the clown show we live in, that's as good as anything else. When reality can just shift in front of your eyes, there's no theory that's too bizarre. In fact, I think it's the opposite. If your theory is inside the bookends of what you think is real, then that's not going to be right. It's going to be outside the bookends, in my opinion. But I just like some sort of theory, if you see what I'm saying. Anyway, and no reason to make a video back at me or anything like that. I'm just, again, we're all on the same team here. I came across this. It supports your research that these buildings couldn't possibly have been constructed. Now we have like 1,000 examples of this, and we're all in the same foxhole. In this reality, getting screwed over by the powers that be. I'm just curious. what they would say about how the evidence of inherited buildings would have been removed or covered up. Anyway, I think I've no reason for me to beat a dead horse. That's pretty clear. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on Thursday.